Hello, I'm Jim Tynan, AASHTO's Executive Director, and thank you for joining the National Operations Center of Excellence here on YouTube Live to celebrate this year's Tismo Awards. We're going to do a few things during today's ceremony, and first we're going to start with announcing the 2021 Tismo Award overall winner, chosen from the 4 category winners. And then we're going to talk to this year's Tismo Champion, Brad Fries of the Tennessee DOT. And then finally, we're going to discuss next year's Tismo Awards and how you and your organization can participate. But first, I'm happy to be joined today by Scott Marler, who is the director of the Iowa Department of Transportation and serves as chair of both NOCO's Strategic Advisory Council and AASHTO's Committee on Transportation Systems Operations. Director Marler is going to tell us a little bit about NOCO overall and the awards program, and then introduce the 2021 Tismo Champion. So Scott, over to you.
Thank you, Jim, and hi, everyone. The National Operations Center of Excellence is a partnership of the American Association of Highway Transportation Officials, AASHTO, ITE, and ITS America, with support from the Federal Highway Administration at the US DOT. Each year, the National Operations Center of Excellence hosts the Tismo Awards to honor the best practices in managing and operating the transportation systems throughout the country. In 2021, we had 4 category winners announced earlier in the year. You can see up on your screen here the 4 outstanding winners from this year. We will announce the overall winner later in the program here today. But first, as part of these awards, each year we honor a Tismo Champion. A Tismo Champion is someone who not only has forwarded the practice of Tismo in their agency, but who has worked across the profession to advance the state of the practice. This year, I'm pleased to say that we're honoring Mr. Brad Fries of the Tennessee Department of Transportation as our Tismo Champion. Brad, welcome.
Thank you, Scott.
Brad, the Operations Center has released a great profile on your work and what makes you truly a Tismo champion. I encourage everyone on the call to take a look at that on the NOCO website and linked here in the chat box. So to start, Brad, I want to ask you, when did you start seeing yourself as a Tismo professional and what we now know to be just a Tismo champion?
Yes, sir. So really, probably after 10 days in Linthicum Heights, Maryland at the Operations Academy, shout out for the class of 2012. I was privileged to attend the Operations Academy, which is really was sponsored by the used to be the I-95 Corridor Coalition, now the Institute of Transportation Coalition, and FHWA is part of that as well. So I was privileged to attend that, and really after the 10 days of drinking the Kool-Aid and really getting to see that bigger picture view of everything. At that time I came in as more of a technology guy, focused more specifically on ITS, but getting to see the big picture and getting to meet with my peers there, really I came away, with that understanding of what it means to be a Tismo champion and what it means to be a Tismo professional.
Oh, thank you. I want to again welcome everyone to this YouTube live event with the National Operations Center of Excellence. I'm Scott Marler, the Director of Iowa DOT, and I'm joined by Brad Fries of the Tennessee Department of Transportation, who is the 2021 Tismo Champion. And now for our next question, Brad. Tennessee recently dealt with the challenge of the Hernando de Soto Bridge closing. I know operations played a crucial role in managing this situation. Can you tell us a little more about your approach to managing the system because of the bridge closing and how Tismo specifically played a role?
Great. So that was it was a challenging summer for us at TDOT, but also Arkansas DOT. And I guess I would have to say it was a real team effort all around. It was just not one agency out there. It was really, the partnerships between Arkansas DOT, the locals, Memphis, city of Memphis, working with the local Memphis police, Tennessee Highway Patrol, really daily. We met daily. We had these technical meetings daily where we talked about it. And our approach was very proactive We looked at the data. Every day we got a report from our radar sensors and probe data just to look at what traffic was doing, where the delays were occurring. Obviously, where we knew we were going to have delays, but also it helped us really change, come up with different mitigation strategies and come up with different plans as far as making improvements in near real time. So that was something that really increased, really showcased operations in TSMO, Transportation Systems Management and Operations.
Great, thank you. Another quick station identification. Again, I'm Scott Marler, Director of the Iowa DOT, here today with the National Operations Center of Excellence to honor Brad Freeze at Tennessee DOT as this year's Tismo Champion. Okay, Brad, my last question. You've led a Tismo department and implemented many Tismo projects. Several of your projects have been featured as case studies at the Operations Center. They've been in the running for NOCO Awards. Can you tell me about a project or two that you're particularly proud of during your time at Tennessee DOT?
Right. So I guess one of the highlights early on when we formed the Traffic Operations Division and we really started reorganizing to support TSMO was the building of we built a traffic incident management training track in partnership with our Tennessee Highway Patrol. I mean, that was just all around just the partnership that we had with our state police and just the timing, everything came together really well. And that was something that I'm always going to remember. We got to cut a ribbon, and so many of these TSMO projects, we don't really, don't get that opportunity to cut a ribbon, some of these initiatives that we have. So it was a great experience with that project. The other project I would say is our I-24 Smart Corridor in Tennessee is really something that combines so many elements of TSMO into one project, and it's really an ICM, Integrated Corridor Management project in Tennessee. So that's something that I'm really proud of as well.
Before we go, Brad, I want to hear what's next for you and for your agency in the realm of TSMO.
So we have great leadership support for TSMO. I mean, we are currently in the process of developing our TSMO program plan. It's our second iteration of that plan. We have great leadership support, like I said. However, I mean, we're still swimming upstream every now and then. We're continuing trying to increase the focus on transportation systems management and operations. That we have to, it's a continual process of selling and working against the culture, the traditional culture of a DOT. But we have, like I said, we have great support from leadership. I myself will be moving on from the Tennessee Department of Transportation here in next month. Actually, I've accepted a position at the Nashville DOT, so I have an opportunity to be a Tismo champion at the local level in Tennessee, but we have a strong program here at the Tennessee DOT and looking forward to a lot of great things coming for our agency.
Wonderful. Well, again, Brad, congratulations on being named this year's National Operations Center of Excellence Tismo Champion. It's been so good to hear about the work you're doing and have done. Thank you for sharing your insights, and on a personal level, I so much value your innovation and inclusive leadership over the years. We wish you all the best at Nashville DOT.
Thank you, Scott.
I would encourage everyone to check out the profile created for Brad via the link in the chat box. Before I hand it back over to Jim Timon to announce the 2021 TSMO Award overall winner, I would like to direct everyone's attention to the screen for the 2022 TSMO Awards next year. The 2022 TSMO Awards will feature 4 category winners next year. We've added 2 new categories. They are Digital Infrastructure for TSMO, as well as Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for TSMO. The submission period is open now, and submissions will be accepted through mid-December. So please visit the Operations Center's website to learn more, and we encourage you to submit those innovative things that are happening in your world with transportation systems management and operations. The 2022 awards will also feature a TSMO champion. So be sure to submit your nominations to honor an individual who has excelled at advancing TSMO, both inside and outside of their organization and for the industry at large. As many of you know, each year, the National Operations Center takes the award submissions and builds them into case studies. There are now more than 120 of these case studies capturing the great work of TSMO practitioners. We encourage you to check out the link in the chat box to see them all and be a part of the 2022 award to make sure your good work is included. Now I'd like to turn it back over to Jim Timon to announce this year's TSMO Award overall winner. Back to you, Jim.
Well, thank you, Director Marler, and congratulations again to Brad Freeze. While it's disappointing to see him move on from the state DOT community, I know that it's a great opportunity for him at Nashville, and that he's leaving behind a great team there with Tennessee DOT. It's also important to point out, right, that these issues that we're dealing with from an operations standpoint, they don't necessarily respect, what jurisdiction a facility is from a state or a local standpoint, and that we all do need to be able to work together across those jurisdictions. So, we know we're going to continue to see Brad within the TSMO community and continue to be able to benefit from the great work and contributions that he's made over the years and will be continue to make into the future. So now on to our TSMO Award overall winner. Earlier this year, the Center for Operations Excellence announced the 4 category winners for this year's awards, and they are in the Best TSMO Project category, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for their TSMO Performance Program and Traffic Operations Analytics tool. In the Agency Improvement category, the North Carolina DOT for their Traffic Incident Management Training track, and in the work zones using TSMO category, the Iowa Department of Transportation for their entry on Comprehensive Work Zone Management Program. In the Project Selection and Prioritization category, the Pennsylvania DOT for their Regional Operations Plan. So, as I mentioned earlier, each year, those were the 4 category winners, but each year we announce one TSMO overall award winner from these 4 categories. And this year's overall winner is the Pennsylvania DOT for their TSMO Performance Program and Traffic Operations Analytics tool. So we're joined today by Ryan McNary, who's the manager of the Traffic Systems and Performance for PennDOT, Scott Benedict, who is a senior traffic control specialist with Traffic Systems and Performance with the PennDOT Central Office, and Matt Closure is the acting manager for ITS and Congestion Management for PennDOT's District 8. Congratulations to all of you and Pennsylvania DOT for this project and this award.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna thanks, Ryan. We're gonna ask you guys a few questions, give you a chance to participate here. The congestion pie chart that has been a longstanding theme here in the world of TSMO outlines kind of the non-recurrent congestion as a major cause in our traffic for our roadways. But these previous pie charts that we've been used to seeing in the operations world, they're just estimates. This project here that you guys have put forward takes essentially a real world pie chart for your specific transportation system. Can you tell us a little bit about how you did that and how you're starting to use this information and how you're managing your transportation network?
Sure. Yeah, like I said, thanks again for this honor. It's a lot of work over the years to get here, and the congestion pie chart is one of the iterations that we've worked to for a long time. To stay on that theme, it's been a very iterative approach. So all that are listening, this didn't happen overnight. It occurred over several years, but in the beginning, we basically had to combine a lot of several, of our DOT databases into one specific TSMO database, where we kind of drew that link to congestion and how we could start building a congestion pie chart per se, is we linked all of our DOT data sources to crowdsource incident data, specifically from Waze and INRIX. And we primarily did this spatially and temporally for those that are interested in doing this in your own areas. But this is how we started to understand how incidents impacted congestion. It was impacting the motorists out on the roadways. It started from EDC4 efforts from FHWA. We were able to put data-driven measures back to when, the travel gets back to normal too, per those conditions we get from INRIX. So we use that methodology by drawing these links, and we started to combine that information back to our police reported crashes, our incident management database, the maintenance database, our weather information, and then, like I said, Waze and INRIX. So long story short, we linked all these slowdowns into a kind of comprehensive congestion impact score. So basically, we have the overarching amount of congestion for the state, and then it's put through a hierarchy of cause. And to make it clean, we had to, separate it by certain causes. So, for example, if you have recurrent congestion and in an area where you're expecting that, but then there's a crash in that congestion, we had to set the hierarchy, but all the time before is recurrent congestion, the crash occurs, that is going to be associated to the crash congestion. We do have the ability to look on the back end of the database to all look at those multi-factors as well, because we know congestion as a whole isn't one cause. So that's pretty much on the real high level how we've drawn this link on the back end. But we have the ability to look into it further. Scott, if you wanted to talk a little bit, maybe a little more about the methodology and how we developed it a little bit with our team.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of how we did this, we can't forget the contributions of our data team, our IT, our data scientists. They're not represented here, but they do the grunt work here. We have a database of terabytes and terabytes of data, and we understand operations, but they understand the data on a deeper level and can do all the correlations. So, basically what we do, and this is our general process, we kind of said, we kind of laid out for them, here's what the congestion pie chart is. How's the best way that we can accomplish this based on the data that we have? And then they came back with a rough methodology, which usually when we get the questions right, usually the rough methodology is 70, 80, not even 90% of the way there. And then we have a significant back and forth to kind of help them clearly understand what we need and what we're looking for. And then they deliver that to us in terms of what they can put together in a really useful and usable report.
Matt, to his second part of the question, how's it been used on the local level? I think in his introduction we heard that the regional operations plans won an award as well. But I know specifically on your side, if you wanted to link that for everybody, how the planning partners are.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pie charts, what they did during our regional operations plan, we could narrow down the cause of congestion for each individual corridor. We broke it up into each district, and specifically for our region. So basically what, we all saw the historical Tismo pie chart that, laid out the typical causes of congestion. Well, what this allowed us to do was focus our efforts on the specific congestion that was unique to that either district, corridor, throughout our ROP process. So, there may be different causations, and you could see that and utilize that data to, implement the appropriate projects.
So I think that kind of wraps it up. We are looking eventually to maybe get this into the processes ahead of the curve, into the construction design, capital improvement projects where they're looking to add capacity to the roadway. So the congestion pie chart's considered, even in that design phase. So
that's great. Ryan, one of the things that I found interesting with this is that this was implemented really just before and at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about how you're able to use this data to influence some of the decisions that were made from a transportation management standpoint standpoint, or some of the policies that you were able to put in place during or in response to the pandemic?
Yeah, it was released in January 2020. So a few months before we had all the mitigations efforts here in Pennsylvania. So we kind of had to take a step back at that point in time. I think everybody throughout the nation saw the recurrent congestion, or the congestion they're used to at the AM and PM peaks, go away. So we found that as well, from the performance perspective. We had zero recurrent congestion on Pennsylvania core roadway networks in 2020. But the main thing we were hearing from our traffic engineers is we need to understand what that difference is. Where is the traffic volume dissipating, and what roads, and how is the impact rural or urban? So we had to take a look back. So we weren't necessarily looking at the congestion pie chart at that time. We were looking more at our permanent count stations to understand where our traffic volume was dissipating and where it was going away. But we also looked at kind of an opportunity. The way I phrased it to my team is, whenever these things are taken away from us, it's an opportunity too. So from the TMC perspective, we had construction go away for 2 months, period, in the beginning of construction season here in Pennsylvania, where we didn't have any road work. And for our processes in Pennsylvania, they still receive phone calls pretty much from 7 to 10. And that's a major distraction for an operator. But this gave us the opportunity to look at the effectiveness and how an operator can act when he doesn't have, or she doesn't have, that intrusion into their daily business. So we're able to prove, we looked at the information, that they are as efficient and even more effective. Keep in mind, they were all remote as well. So all of our TMCs were remote throughout primarily all of 2020. So it kind of got us to the point where we're developing an app. So here's the cause and the effect, right? So I manage all the traffic management systems as well. We're developing an app that can be used by our field inspectors, that they can let us know when they're on scene on those work zones. So they can click on or off. Is it an active or an inactive work zone? I think across the nation, that is something that's evaded a lot of different TMCs and operations personnel. We don't know if they're out there, because we want to protect them as much as the motorists that are approaching. So we're working on that app right now. It's still in development. We're going to be upgrading a few things, but at the same time, it's going to make their lives hopefully a lot easier in the morning, and not have to take those phone calls and those distractions. So that's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question, not per se to the congestion pie chart, but to kind of wrap it back up to where I started is, basically we had to understand that 2019 to 2020 comparison. And that came directly from our executives, to the point of understanding its impact on fuel tax revenue. So Scott and I developed a fuel tax revenue model that was based off the VMT and the traffic volumes and the information that was coming from the Department of Revenue. I like to, we have a variance of only -1% right now. So we're pretty proud of that. We came up with it pretty quickly. And then we have a traffic volume analysis report that we actually used to have to do weekly for all of our traffic engineers, which is now a tool for all of our districts to use. But Scott was integral to that process. So I'm going to let him kind of go into that a little further. So why don't you talk about that, Scott?
Sure. And I mean, the congested pie chart itself is an annual tool. It's not something that we generate in real time. All of our data sets we have to have, so we can do that one time a year. And so obviously we understood that once the pandemic hit, everything we knew about congestion was no longer accurate. And so it wasn't a tool that we were able to use usefully too much during the pandemic. One thing it has enabled us to do, as we've looked at our 2020 pie chart, is we have a very easy way to quantify what the impact was on congestion of the pandemic in terms of reduction, in terms of whether it changed the nature of congestion. We saw over a 70% reduction in congestion of all kinds on our core network last year. 2021 will be kind of the new normal year, probably to a certain extent. And then, like Ryan said, our office pivoted to really focus on really just understanding that new normal we had to work with our Bureau of Planning and Research to develop this traffic dashboard, traffic to get our count station data. That was data that we had, but mostly just that was, done to meet our requirements and submitted that way. It wasn't something that was being pushed out for other people in the department, like operations folks, to look at and really be able to see what was going on, because it wasn't something we necessarily had a demand for before. And so putting that together, I think was one of our highlights of 2020, to be sure, as well as the fuel revenue generation model, which we were looking at, basically being able to come up with a model to predict month to month what the traffic counts had been relative to 2019 levels, and then put that on top of 2019 fuel sales. And like Ryan said, we were able, doing that on a month-to-month basis, to get our fuel revenues for the year right within 1%. So we were pretty pleased with that.
Well, that's great. Again, I'm Jim Timon. I'm the executive director of AASHTO, and I'm here with Ryan McNary and Scott Benedict and Matt Klauser from PennDOT, who have just been announced as the winner of the Tismo Award overall winning project. So we're talking about their Tismo performance program and traffic operations analytics tool. So let me ask another question here. You guys have talked a little bit about how this tool has produced data that you've been using or you've been seeing used across PennDOT. Are there any other examples of key initiatives that have resulted from this planning process? And specifically, how do you expect planning to be part of future initiatives, such as cooperative automated transportation situations in the future?
So our kind of key efforts right now are to get the congestion pie chart into the business, the core business of the planning organizations. You almost have to go on like a PR campaign when you release something. This award is probably certainly going to help us with that PR campaign. So we appreciate that, highly. But some other avenues that we're actively working on that we haven't published yet are we're trying to quantify, how winter weather conditions cause certain major incidents, and then what's that tipping point in certain conditions that cause hazardous driving, scenarios, or that is most prevalent on our roadways. Ultimately the goal is to, automate protection messages for motorists that are approaching, for example, a whiteout or a snow squall. Those are a real concern in Pennsylvania. They pop up all the time, and they cause the 50 to 100 car pileups. So if anything we can do to get ahead of that, knowing where it's going to go or the track of the storm, is going to be beneficial. So that's one core thing we're working on right now. We're pretty close to identifying that. We're going to be piloting some manual approaches to that this year in our ATMS system. We're trying to better define how we deploy ITS devices, be more data driven, not just say, let's just put one here. We have a construction project. Be data driven on the background of understanding device deployment. We're trying to understand, is there an impact on the motorists with certain CMS messaging? So we don't have we have a uniform policy for CMS messaging, but we don't have a standard template that everybody has to use. So we're trying to understand if a certain type of detour route message or a certain type of construction message is more effective on our motorists. So we're in the process of working on that. And then I think the biggest development we're probably going to have is we're trying to work on a data fusion engine, and we're in the design phase currently. So we're going to have the ability to have a V2X capability where we have all of our data and some of our Tismo outcomes that would be able to be sent out to any cars that are listening. So any of those hazardous weather conditions that maybe pop up, or we could have virtual CMS out there. We're trying to be less deployments in the field, maintenance costs, and we're getting to a connected time where we could be in dash almost, but we don't want to be too intrusive there. So it's a fine line, but that's where we're heading.
Well, that's great. Before we get to our last question, I did just want to say again that congratulations to all of our Tismo Award category winners. the North Carolina DOT, the Iowa DOT, all had fantastic projects. And I really do want to encourage you to look at those case studies of the work that they did and the work that many other agencies within the National Operations Center of Excellence case study web page that are in the chat box. So if you get a chance, please take a look at all of those other great projects that are out there. So before we close our ceremony, I did want to ask you one last question. I wanted to ask about how you see PennDOT and other agencies using this type of performance data for new initiatives. I know you've mentioned a few here, but also, how can the tool be adapted for other agencies' needs and initiatives moving forward?
So I think culturally, that's the biggest hurdle other agencies are going to have. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge when I started in operations 7 years ago, I think my boss, Doug Tomlinson, wanted a Tismo performance program. I think I heard him say it weekly, but we struggled to get it off the ground. We didn't know where it would reside. So picking what office it would reside in, my office that I manage right now wasn't always around. The traffic management systems office wasn't around back then. It became something, but I think that's first you have to set out. He had the vision. He went to IT. He helped us solicit getting those data scientists, the database infrastructure, etc. So that's probably integral to all of this. So many thanks for his vision and support on that. But then secondly, we have an open door policy. So we work with everybody. We've already done successful programs with the Department of Environmental Protection, looking at overweight waste trucks by reclamation centers. Our maintenance office recently reached out to us trying to look at snowplow routes and how they prioritize them during certain winter storms. They said they haven't looked at it in a long time. But the structure of our system is we use the government version of Power BI to visualize all of our data. We use the Azure cloud, interface. We work in the cloud first because we like that agile approach. We wouldn't want to do it on premises because there's a lot of intricate work that would have to go on. But as Scott alluded to before, we have a lot of back and forth. We have these meetings weekly with our data scientists. And part of the reason why we brought Scott on to lead this and give this the attention that it needs. So it's not an exact science, performance data is not an exact science. And we've always found that, over the years, the institutional knowledge of what people thought was real out in the world wasn't. So a lot of trial and error. So that's a little wisdom for you. Scott, did you want to touch on anything there?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the process, like Ryan said, we have an open door and we've actually, on the congestion pie chart specifically, this is something that's had a lot of interest to everybody. When we know there were several efforts to do this at the same time, most notably UMD and the CAT Lab have been working on one to do nationally. And we've collaborated with them. We were happy we got it done first, but we've been happy to be along, for our sake, but we've been happy to come. We've had a couple conversations with them to get on this, to talk to them and make, kind of share stories on our methodology to try and make this stuff better for everybody. We're also in the interest of, actually being able to make this available to outside partners and planning partners. We're working with a local planner here from the local MPO to try and get, we want to be able to have external access so they don't have to reinvent the wheel, can use what we've already done, and also even bring them into the process. So if there's things that we're doing that we can tweak or add to that would help them and then give them access to our tool, that would be an option that we're looking to pursue.
I think it's great that we're talking about partnerships and how we can share this information across different agencies, different entities. Really, that is the core function of what the National Operations Center of Excellence is supposed to do. At the beginning, Ryan, when you were talking to us, you mentioned the Everyday Counts initiative, which has been just so helpful, I think, to the state DOT community. An effort that's been run now by the Federal Highway Administration for, I guess almost 10 years now. But so many great ideas have come out of that initiative. It's great for us to be able to highlight the work that FHWA does and the partnership that the state DOTs and AASHTO have with FHWA. It's just been great. We wouldn't be able to do some of the great things that we do, especially with the National Operations Center of Excellence, without that partnership and that relationship with FHWA. So thank you to all of them and the work that they do there. Director Marler, do you have any questions here for our award winners today?
Well, no questions, but I just want to congratulate Ryan and Scott and Matt, and what a wonderful example of such outstanding projects in Pennsylvania. Thank you for your leadership, and we look forward to the innovations you're going to be bringing next. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, let me also congratulate all of you again, and again to the Pennsylvania DOT for being this year's TSMO Award winner. And thank you specifically, Ryan, Scott, and Matt, for being here with us. Again, I want to mention that next year's TSMO Awards is now open for submission. So it's time to get your submissions ready for an opportunity to win one of these prestigious awards. And finally, I want to take an opportunity to thank my co-host, Scott Marler, for all the work that he's doing. He is not only the person that's leading our National Operations Center of Excellence, but he is also the one that leads our Committee on Transportation Systems Operations. We put a lot on Scott's plate in addition to the great work that he does in his real job, his day job. So I want to thank him for the great work that he does within the state DOT community, and specifically here at AASHTO and for the National Operations Center of Excellence. So thank you, Scott, for everything that you do. So in closing, I'm Jim Timon, the Executive Director of AASHTO, and thank you for joining us today.